UX should even think of UI while developing sometimes.
Right.
Even the resolutions, different resolutions and everything.
Right.
So this is happening mostly in like a couple of companies that I work. This was some major challenge. How can that be reduced, or how is that reduced in your organization?
So in ClearTech, what we do is we set standards, right? So in terms of UI, we have a pattern library or a system library where we say, okay, hey, these are the universal set of components that we are going to build. So UX designers or product designers who are trying to solve problems, they pick and choose from those pattern library and then they do it. So all these pattern libraries are not just design components, but they are also interactive components, which essentially means we have already collaborated with the front-end guys and we have ready-made code for it. So that reduces a lot of friction between a lot of confusions, like how you're saying. So if you start setting standards and if you start documenting it, and you should be able to circulate to the engineers and you should be able to circulate to the product managers, and that will reduce a lot of confusion.
So one more addition. I mean, this is the new idea of design styles, and how do you actually fix the entire style guide and stuff. But in the old world, we used to actually do something called as defining the user environment, which essentially means that what are all the browsers, what are all the devices, and what browsers in those devices should we be ready for, and like how should it gracefully degrade or upgrade depending on the size of the device, and so on is predefined while you're actually defining the users themselves. Right? Like there is one part in the entire story which is about user environment. User environment is not necessarily, whether the lady is sitting in a cowshed or in a house. I mean, that will be there too. But there is also stuff which includes what are the browsers, what are the technology platforms, what are the sizes, what are the aspect ratios, what are the devices that we should be ready for. So the framework to actually doing the UI, the page, doesn't have anything that falls off.
I have a question. Here, this side.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to know, what will be the career roles in the user experience? Like, to set up a team. So, what are the roles we need? Like hierarchy in the user experience. I mean.
So this is something that I've also been trying to understand, because
one small thing, I think it'd be nice to get this viewpoint from both Dharmesh and Jose, because Dharmesh works in a slightly grown corporate or a startup that is kind of growing towards a corporate, while Jose works in a design agency that's a boutique. So let's hear both of them.
So for example, in ClearTech, so the philosophy that boils down is we do not have clear differentiation between UI roles and UX roles. We have something called product designers, and our founder and me, we fundamentally believe that any type of designer will have to solve problems. So that's why we have standards that are set so that designers focus on solving problems rather than getting into the idea of what color the button should be, or what should be the illustration style and all of those, right? But that does not necessarily mean the same environment exists in other places. Let's say, for example, in Flipkart, there is a clear differentiation of a research team and a product design team. Even in the product design team, you might have visual designers and you might have UX designers. So it completely depends on the business and how they are looking at it, and also the team who are setting up all these designs.
So I kind of agree with what he said. If you remember Shiva's presentation, there was slide about information architect and so on, right? So at the most, those will be the divisions, right? One person is looking at the foundation of the structure or the structure of the product. Another person is looking at the visual design. Third person is kind of bringing it all together. But in small teams, we don't have such differentiation. Everybody has to do everything and also make tea for others when they come. So there is no such differentiation. But if at all you want to create a hierarchy like that, it will be typically somebody who's doing the foundational bit, somebody who's doing the design bit, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
My question is just from a observational perspective, I guess. So if I'm using an app like Airbnb or Uber, for instance, when I use the app every single day, I don't think the user experience changes very often. It stays the same for like 6 months or a year or whatever. I don't mean, there may be some minor changes, but they still hire UX designers, and they still have them working full time. So I'm wondering what they're doing when the app design stays the same for like 6 months or 1 year. Are they out of work, or are they working on the next Uber design? What are they doing? So,
The thing is, a consumer facing app is probably just one of the touch points or the multiple different touch points the product or the company is engaging in, right? So sometimes we design products which are not external facing. It could just be internal facing. Sometimes you're designing, for example, in terms of Airbnb, probably there is a separate app for hosts. They're designing only that, and you're just talking about the consumer app where you're seeing it. And even in that app, probably you're not going through all the flows. Probably the most of the flow, probably even in Swiggy or in Uber, you're just trying to book a cab. What if you lost a wallet in Uber, right? We might not experience that situation, but there might be millions of people who are experiencing that situation, and those needs to be designed, right? So we try and first design the majority of the use case, and then you start improvising on all the different use cases, and you start thinking about it. So there is always something to improve, and I don't think we are sitting idle in any point in time.
So, interesting question, because last week both Dharmesh and I spent time with Haley Hughes, who is the head of UX Airbnb, right? So, I mean, that design up, she was one of the speakers, she had come over, which was quite interesting. Even on the consumer side, it took a long time for them to come to a maturity where it doesn't change much. I think it took a seriously long time, and they've actually worked towards a design style, like a set of rigid, specific standards that actually define that this is it. For that, they took an extremely long time to arrive at, right? Like they did probably, I don't know, 10 different iterations before they really reached here, and that takes time. I mean, other than even looking at other stuff like something that is a host-facing app or a business-facing app or any other stuff that exists otherwise too. That's it. Can we go home?
Hello. I have a question related branding. So, how important is UX in branding? For branding?
For branding.
Yeah.
So, let me actually quote this through an example. If I actually say, people who bought this also bought, you know what the brand is.
Yeah.
That's user experience as a brand. Most often, the method in which something is found, like so in e-commerce, largely, I mean, you will get this as you go further into this entire user experience piece itself. Largely, you kind of divide the stuff into ability to discover something, ability to choose something appropriately, ability to compare that with something else that you have chosen, and ability to fulfill it in some way, right? And during this entire process, there are nuances that help you as a part of the experience, and those nuances that you build around it. I'm not talking about surface level stuff which is just the logo and the color. That is not the brand. The brand is deeper than that. Brand is actually the definition of the experience. You would think that if your brand has got to be little like a helpful inventor, which you define the brand to be in some way, you will want that brand to intrude at every point as a helpful person right through till you actually get fulfilled. So the persona, in one sense, of the brand has got to be built into the experience, and that's how there is nothing that is separate. UX is the brand, brand is the UX. So right now people use this term called as brand experience, but like for example, if I actually say Airbnb, you can see the pages in your head. If I say Uber, and if I say Ola, you can see those pages in your head, and you will actually have nuances about the experience. Like a simple thing that I hope there is nobody from Uber and Ola here. There are simple nuances, like for example, ability to, my driver cancelled out on me on a Uber, or I cancelled out on me on myself on a Uber, the method in which I actually get the refund and the refund message back in an Uber versus what happens in Ola are very different from each, and that's a brand, and that's very much a part of the brand. That's a value prop. That's a promise on how that business is going to engage with you as a brand. So it's a very much a part of user experience. You can't price it out.
Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
It's related to universal design.
Okay.
Like if you go to a central mall, right?
Yeah.
The experience is same in every central mall and in every big bazaar, whatever. If you go to some place, the same company from the same brand, the experience is same. How can we apply this in apps?
There is a correction to what you say. That is not universal design.
Okay.
Universal design is different from it. Don't assume the definitions of things based on what it's called.
Okay.
Universal design is about ability to get people with disabilities and stuff like that to use your product as good as people without disabilities using it.
Okay.
That is what universal design is about.
Okay, okay.
What you're talking about is like defining design styles,
Okay.
which is the easiest possible thing. Let's not even talk about that. It's simple. If
Okay.
something has got to be 7 feet here, something has got to be 7 feet there. If there are 3 colors as a part of the palette, there has got to be 3 colors as a part of the palette. If that lady who's coming in has got to have a script in a certain way, it's the same script that she'll repeat in Chennai. That's not a big deal.
Okay.
That's what I meant when I said Airbnb is building this design style. That's what it is.
Okay. I have one more question. Can I
Wow,
ask?
I think we're going to charge you now. You better move the stuff around. We'll come back to you. Give other people a chance.
Hi. Is there a notion in the industry that if a big corporate is hiring a UX designer, that guy should have a considerable amount of experience? If a good brand has to hire you as a UX guy?
I haven't worked in a corporate for a long time, so you keep the guy with.
Yeah.
I think
In recent times, it's been changing. So, for example, when I was working at Adobe, so I knew a lot of my colleagues. They were not necessarily from a design school as per se, but they were exceptionally good, right? It's just that you need to put yourself in environments where you could actually meet people and get those opportunities. So, for example, this is a very tricky thing. Like say, when you're trying to get hired, and if you're going through the
traditional HR route so for example, when HRs are trying to do it, it's very easy for them to filter through tags, right? So, but there are other ways where you could put out your work or talk to people and ask somebody to get a good referral. Is where people, I've started seeing change even in the big corporates where non-traditional designers are accommodated, right? And it is mostly helped by how the designers they creating their brand themselves. Like it's either through putting up their work in Behance or attending meetups or talking about in Dribble and whatever it is, and actually people move. So and now in the recent times also I've seen a lot of like say Microsoft and Adobe and all these guys hiring good designers from startups, and it's very easy to get into startups, right? And people they identify their work, the impact that they created, and they move to larger organizations if that is something that you're interested in.
So how big the role of portfolio is? Is it like really huge?
Whose portfolio?
It's not about your portfolio, by the
No.
way. It's about ability to tell stories with your portfolio. A Behance or a Dribble is not going to help anybody. What is going to help somebody is that the process that you went, that's exactly what I answered somebody earlier when they asked how many projects are we going to do as a part of the course. We might do many projects as a part of the course, but the most important thing is the process and ability to showcase all the deliverables through the process and tell the story that it's got to be said is way more important than just putting a portfolio with 70 items that are red, blue, green, yellow, whichever color and fantastic graphics. Process is more important. Process is more important. Quality can be gained. Ability to stick and flow with a process in a collaborative way with other teams, tough thing to learn.
Like
user experience has come a long way from brick and mortar stores to like digital experiences, apps and websites. So where do you think it's headed in like probably next 20 years? Because right now we have VR, virtual reality, augmented reality coming into picture. So like it's going to be a completely different game for user experience and like the designers and also the consumers. So what do you think is the future of user experience?
Yeah, I think there's one screen is going to go. I think that's going to be pretty soon. There is going to be voice, which is going to take over pretty soon, and it's already happening in multiple ways. But there are changes that are way larger than those that are going to impact us pretty soon. Smaller decisions are going to be taken predominantly with, you will be assisted way more by the software than you are right now. And there could be more immersive stuff that is going to happen. Does it bother designers really from that perspective that the screen, that entire stuff that we thought is visual and that is going to be the guiding light for us, that is going to go away? Probably yes. But the larger thought is, if you know the design thinking aspect of it, where you focus specifically on the user, where you focus on the ability to understand what the user goes through to actually, fulfill, discover, choice, compare, fulfill in an e-commerce kind of situation, and you aid. It doesn't matter what the interface is going to be. It doesn't matter what the future is going to be, because it's unbelievably fundamental. I studied when there was nothing called a computer. I studied graphic design. We actually had to cut every piece of line of text and paste it for an artwork to get it printed. What I do today is completely different, and it's kind of completely foundationally buried in what I did earlier at the same time. So yeah, the future is bleak and exciting at the same time.
So does that mean that a user experience designer also has to learn some programming languages? Because
No.
apparently
No, I mean, that is completely left to you. That's completely left to you. It's completely depending on people. I mean, I don't think, except for Joe's, a bit of Joe's, which is, anyway, it's Pascal and Fortran and all. But then, yeah, I mean, other than front-end technology, he knows front-end technology. Both of us don't know. I mean, I don't know. The best thing that I can do using technology is set up a WordPress site ground up. I can actually hook it up to some ad networks and make sure that the stuff is running right. That's all I can do. But yeah, I mean, anybody, kids do it. My daughter does it, so it's okay. I don't think coding is necessary. I think it's an overkill, honestly. I think it is sometimes deterrent to the method in which you think. Can I kind of stay on that point a little bit? Technology kind of defines us in a way to think modular. Like you actually build things modular as multiple objects that are connected together to kind of deliver an experience. User experience is actually thought of as a flow. It's a river in which you kind of get in on one side and get out on the other. So it's a kind of a little bit of a deterrent. Then you start seeing multiple pieces of a product as modules, which we are desperately trying to break and come to the flow, especially now. Right? And so coding, no.
Thank you.
So when you define user problems, how do you validate that problem? Because every user is different, and even if you take a group of people, so how do you actually, like, what's the most efficient way to validate if the problem is there or is only in your head? I mean,
Okay, so let's say for example, again, you need to first understand the type of business you are in. So let's say for example, when we are working with accountants, right? So the CA's world is very different from how we use products. You need to start understanding, irrespective of whether you have a problem in hand or not, that is one thing. Other than that, also you need to understand their worldview, what kind of softwares they use, right? What is their worldview about, right? Do they want everything upfront or do they want it to be guided, right? So for example, I'll tell you a very interesting example. When I was talking to one accountant, so he's been using Tally for quite some time, right? And I asked him, why don't you use Zoho, which is another accounting software? And one of the interesting stuff that he told me is, like, when I add a particular purchase, Zoho automatically adds a tag saying that, hey, this is whether it's regarding eating outside or it's travel and stuff. So he told me something very interesting that, see, a software should not tell me what I should do, right? The software should behave now. Like I should tell them what the particular purchase is about, right? Whereas that's exactly how Tally works, right? Where it behaves in such a way that it allows the user to do anything, right? So they kind of you would never be afraid of a calculator, right? But if a software starts doing smart things, the accountants are a little taken aback and saying that, why is it doing, right? So understanding where they come from, what is their worldview, will help you take some of those decisions. Coming back to your question of how you should do research is also, let's say, when you build a prototype or when you're trying have hypothesis, you will not be the only person who will be having this hypothesis. You'll have some hypothesis from the business team, you'll have hypothesis from the product management team, and all of this. So the better way is to plan or strategize your research even before they have been executed. So in markets you have tools which will help you emulate how the product will going to be, and go out with people, put it out and test it out. That's the best way to get research and feedback. I don't think there is a particular percentage that will work. Let's say, for example, I put out 3 hypotheses, okay, and clearly people are liking one, then of course the next 2 are dead, right? So also sometimes you might not have a clear winner, right? So that is why at least in startups there is a process of iterating faster. You kind of put it out, you ship it out, and then you start seeing which one works. I think data is the answer. Data is the answer. Whichever works, works.
So first of all, users are not one nebulous lot. You got to kind of slice and dice them, otherwise you will go nuts. And all users are not alike, rightly said. There are a whole bunch of stuff that you will get from users, and what you will get eventually is a couple of user insights. And the insights is what becomes those hypotheses that you start using. Now, if you ask me how true can that insight be, we would not know unless it's actually put in front of somebody. So the only way to do it is to test and fail. But don't look at users as one nebulous mass. That is important. Does it answer your question at all? Okay. So you want a percentage answer? 32.
No, so what we're trying to say is that you can choose a small lot. What you do with them turns out okay for a larger percentage, right? But the most important thing is it helps you get off the ground. Typically, anything to do with user testing, everything is very expensive, right? So more often than not, whenever you're engaging with a company, like for example, if you are a designer or a programmer, or your company is giving a service to a bigger company, unless they pay for it, you will end up, tying bricks to your own legs, because you'll never move forward. It's very expensive. All these things exist, eyeball testing, all these things, right? Eventually nobody ends up paying for those kind of things. So the best thing to do is you take a small sample set, get on with things, see how that goes, and then move on. The truth of the matter is every one of us wants to build that perfect product that is successful from day one, which is a little difficult. So the better thing to do is start small and keep moving, and then build mass as we go on.
I have a follow-up on that. What happens in the industry right now when you have your target market inside, you don't have a random sample set, and what's your top 3 things that you do when you're trying to validate it, just like you said, but on a way of, let's say, A/B testing and all that, it's at the later stage, but before you even start, what's your primary or secondary ways of researching, which are cost effective, because fail faster, that's what you said, and I've heard that so many times, but you still have something to go on, right? You need some research.
So, right. One of the stuff that I would say is do not believe in quantitative.
Qualitative.
Quantitative. Do not believe in quantitative.
Why is that?
Because design is about a mode of quality of something.
Okay.
What you get out of quantitative is just numbers. You don't know how they feel. You need to know how they feel when they use.
But isn't that just for a new feature that I want to
No,
know
not
what they?
necessarily. If you
What about a
actually-
new product?
It doesn't matter. Even for a new product, I believe these three aspects: ability to observe well and take out. So these are, it might sound abstract and nebulous, but that's what we are trained to do, and that's what we are trying to do in this process. It's not software. It is about ability to observe and gather insights from observation. Ability to immerse yourself. And there are methods. There are specific methods in which you can do this immersion. And the ability to participate. And out of these three things, typically what you do is like 3 designers, 4 designers, split themselves up, do it in multiple groups, come back, do a workshop where you do, the sticky notes, the best possible tool in town. You actually write all the stuff, insights that you've got, group them together, and say these are, and note and vote. That's something that you would actually do. You would say these are the top 5 that you want to go after. Right? Of this, the primary priority is probably these 2. So let me put something together and put it in front of them. That's the process. That's the optimal, the most beautiful process that they can think of. But it's short-circuited during time because you will find this insight way earlier than you can in other places. 2 conversations with somebody will tell you something that you've been looking for the entire last month. So you cannot predict them in any possible way.
So there are no set methods that any startup or any product has for, like you said, there are interviews, there are one-on-one, there are surveys, and there are all of that. But are there no set methods?
The only thing is to do sprint for research. The sprint for research is gather a bunch of people who are stakeholders in a room. If you want to include users, and the users are good to do it, include them too. Write a bunch of things that is appropriate as what your findings are. Note and vote. That's the fastest possible way you can reach.
Okay, we'll take one last question from the other side of the room now. You had a question. Was that answered? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Narayan. Actually, I found more of software and web-related thing only about user experience you have explained about. You have explained mostly about user experience, about web designing or software related only. I would like to know how much it will be helpful for a product designer, a product experience designers.
What do you mean by product?
Physical products like
This won't help you much.
Okay.
Won't. People study a lot of stuff to actually become industrial and product designers.
Yeah.
This doesn't do justice at all.
Okay, that is not right.
This doesn't do justice at all.
Yeah.
A cat killed. Average is dead.